In lesson 1-3, we're going to be covering squares and square roots. So for the main idea, it says find squares of numbers and square roots of perfect squares. All right, so a lot to do with squares here. So for an example to start with, I started with a square and the sides measure 3 units each. Okay, so a square we know has all sides are equal. And so if we're talking about the area of this square, we would do 3 times 3, which equals 9. Well, we know another way now to write that would be 3 to the second power, or 3 squared also equals 9. So perfect squares are those numbers where we take whole numbers and we square them, and the result is a perfect square. So for example, I'm going to make a list down here. I'd like you to make a list in your notes as well. For 2 squared, we're going to get 4. For 3 squared, we're going to get 9. For 4 squared, we'll get 16. 5 squared, we know is 25. 6 squared is 36. 7 squared is 49. 8 squared is 64. 9 squared is 81. 10 squared is 100. 11 squared is 121, and 12 squared is 144. And we can stop there. And if you wanted to start with 1, we could say 1 squared is 1. But we don't normally call 1 a perfect square. Okay, so that's why I'm going to kind of separate that here with a line. But just so we have our full list, we know that 1 times 1 is still 1. All right. Now the square root in the radical symbol, okay, square root looks like that. So whenever it asks to find a square root. Now the square root is our ability to go backwards. So to square the number, we go from these numbers down here and the numbers get bigger. Now if I say the square root of 81, then I'm going to go backwards and I'm going to say the answer is 9. So kind of contrasting what we were doing before is we're going from 9 squared to 81. Now we're going the square root of 81 is 9. Not 9 squared, but just plain 9. Okay? So let's try a couple here. So it says find the square of 5. Now you're going to have problems like this with the directions. It says find the square of 5 in your homework. And what I want you to do is write 5 squared equals, now again, that's 5 times 5, so 25. Now we just made a list, so you can flip back to your list and say, okay, 5 squared, that's 25. Okay, so we kind of made a little cheat sheet list. All right, now it says find the square of 19. So again, we're going to say 19 squared equals. Now you can either work this out by hand, or if you need to, you can jump onto a calculator. So I'll go ahead and pull my calculator up, and we'll go 19 times 19 equals, and we get 361 for our answer. Okay, so then our answer here is 361, and that would be all we need to do for homework. So in your homework, in your book, you're going to see it says find the square of these numbers, and then like maybe problem number 17, it can be 19. So you have to write 19 squared equals 361. You have to write all of that. All right, so now again, we're going to talk about square roots. So find the square root of 36. We're going to say square root of 36. What number squared would be 36? So if we flip back here to our notes, okay, we look down here, perfect squares. Here's 36. So 6 squared equals 36. So that means the square root of 36 gives us our original number, which is just plain 6. Not 6 squared, but 6. So there's my final answer. 6 would be the answer to what is the square root of 36. Okay, so we have a few problems here. We're going to copy the original problem to make sure we stay in that habit. Square root of 64 we know is 8. Square root of 81 is 9. And the square root of 9 is 3. Okay, so again, we're going backwards. 8 times 8 is 64. So if I take the square root of 64, I get just one of those two 8s. Don't put a squared symbol up here. Okay? All right, it says find the square root of 676. Square root of 676. Now, one thing here I'm going to look at is the last digit is a 6. All right, so I'm going to go back to my original notes page, And I'm going to notice that, okay, this is a 4, 9, 16. Okay, so the last digit is a 6. This last digit is a 6, and that's my only two perfect squares, an n and a 6. So I know that this number that I'm looking for is going to either have a 4 or a 6 at the end of it. So to find the square root of 676, I know that the last digit is either going to be a 4 or 6. So I know it's not 16, so it's not 4 times 4, it's not 36, it's much bigger than that. It's probably even bigger than 14 or 16 also, okay? But again, with your calculators, if you open them up, I know I don't have the same calculator as you, but if you look at your calculators on your iPads, you have this little square root symbol. Okay, so if you use this square root symbol, okay, I'm going to go ahead and clear this first. You're going to need to press the square root symbol first and then type in the number 676. Okay, my calculator is a little different. I have to type the number first and then press the square root. Okay, your iPad calculator is just a little bit different. Then press equals, and then we get our answer is 26. So we were right in our assumption that it was going to have either a 4 or 6 at the end. It ended up being a 6. So our answer is 26. What that means is 26 squared equals 676. So therefore, the square root of 676 equals 26. Not 26 squared, just plain 26, okay? All right, a word problem. It says Kyle is planting a new garden that is a square with an area of 196 square feet. What are the dimensions of Kyle's garden? Okay. If it's a word problem and it's talking about, images, we might want to draw a picture. So I'm going to draw as close to a square as I can. All right. I know the area of this is 196 square feet. What I want to know is what are the dimensions. So I want to know what is this side and what is this side. Now I know since it's a square, it's just going to be x times x, and that's going to equal that 196. All right, but I got to figure out what is this. So if I combined it, this would be x squared equals 196. Now, to get my answer, I'm going to have to take the square root of 196. Okay, so what is the square root of 196? Again, this problem ends with a 6. We know that it's probably going to be either a 4 or 6 for our answer, but let's check it out with our calculators. Okay, so again, 196, we got to do the square root of that, and I get 14. So 14 is the square root of 196. So that means what are the dimensions? So we're going to say 14 feet by 14 feet. Okay, and this would be my final answer if this were a homework problem. Now, I would be expected to show, as much of this work as I could. And the final answer, then, we can circle or put a box around 14 feet by 14 feet. Whenever it asks for dimensions, we're looking for 2 different dimensions, not just one. Because squares are nice because we know we're going to get the same dimension. But if it was a rectangle or something else, we might have 2 different numbers. Okay, and that takes us to our last example for lesson 1-3. Make sure your notes match the notes that I showed in the video, and check the Moodle page for your homework assignment.